Welcome to a deep dive into Eat That Frog.
Yeah.
21 Great Ways to Stop Procrastinating and Get More Done in Less Time by Brian Tracy,
Oh, classic.
as summarized in the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu.
Yeah, right. We're serving up a concentrated dose of productivity wisdom today.
Mm,
Eat That Frog is a classic for a reason. Its principles are simple and practical and
absolutely.
applicable to just about anyone.
I love that you call it a concentrated dose because that's exactly what Anil Nathu seems to have achieved
Right.
with this 1 Hour Guide.
Right.
It's like he's boiled down this whole book into its most potent essence.
The essence, the good stuff.
And speaking of potent, let's talk about that title, Eat That Frog. It's certainly attention-grabbing.
Oh, yeah.
What's the story behind that metaphor?
Well, the frog is a symbol, you could say.
Okay.
It represents that one task on your to-do list that you dread the most.
Oh, I have so many of those.
The one you're most likely to keep pushing back.
Yeah.
But here's the twist. It's also often the task that has the potential to make the biggest positive impact
Interesting.
once you finally tackle it.
So it's like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Yeah, like that.
Do the hard thing first and the rest of the day feels like a breeze in comparison.
Exactly. But how do we figure out which tasks are our frogs in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's where the book's advice on planning and prioritization comes in.
Okay.
And that's what Anil Nathu really nails in this summary.
Yeah.
It starts with having a clear vision for what you want to achieve.
Right.
Chapters 1 and 2 really drive this home.
Right. Set the table and plan every day in advance. It sounds basic,
Sure.
but I can definitely see how having those goals written down, broken into smaller steps, would be a game changer.
It's huge.
It's like having a roadmap instead of just wandering around aimlessly.
It is a roadmap.
Yeah,
And, a good roadmap also highlights the most efficient routes.
I like that.
That's where Chapter 3 and the 80-20 rule come into play. Think about it. Have you ever felt like you're working your tail off, but not seeing the results you want?
Oh, yeah, totally. I call those my hamster wheel days.
We all have them.
Yeah.
But the 80-20 rule suggests that 80% of our results often come from just 20% of our efforts.
Interesting.
So the key is to identify that crucial 20%,
Okay.
those high-impact activities. Those are your biggest, juiciest frogs.
Mm.
Anil Nathu makes that connection crystal clear in the 1 Hour Guide.
So it's about focusing our energy on the things that really matter, the things that are going to move the needle.
The important stuff.
And that ties in nicely with Chapter 6. Apply the ABCDE method continuously. How does that method help us prioritize?
Think of it like this.
Okay.
You've got your to-do list, but not all tasks are created equal.
Right.
Some are mission critical,
Yeah.
while others are just busy work.
Oh, busy work.
The ABCDE method helps you categorize them based on their importance and urgency.
Okay.
A, tasks are your top priorities, your main course frogs, if you will.
I see. So A is like the frog.
Right. B, tasks are important, but maybe not as urgent.
Okay.
And so on, down to E tasks,
Right.
which might be things you can delegate or even eliminate altogether.
Like sorting your laundry.
I like that.
You wouldn't throw your delicates in with your jeans and towels.
No.
Each item needs a different level of care.
Yeah.
And it's the same with our tasks.
A perfect analogy. And here's a fascinating twist that Brian Tracy throws in and that Anil Nathu emphasizes in the summary.
Interesting.
Chapter 5 talks about creative procrastination.
Isn't all procrastination, well, bad?
That's what's so intriguing about this concept. Tracy suggests that we should actually intentionally procrastinate on those low-impact tasks, the ones that aren't really going to make a difference.
I see. The E-tasks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about giving ourselves permission to say no
Oh,
to the things that are cluttering up our day and distracting us from our true priorities.
Yeah. So it's a strategic procrastination, almost like clearing out the weeds to make room for the flowers to grow.
Yes.
I'm curious, in the 1 Hour Guide, how does Anil Nathu connect this idea of creative procrastination to the bigger picture of productivity?
He emphasizes that it's not just about getting more things done.
Right.
It's about doing the right things.
Okay.
And that brings us to the next key takeaway from the book, focusing on taking action and getting results.
Taking action, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've identified our frogs and we've prioritized them.
Right.
Now, how do we actually get ourselves to eat them? I mean, let's face
Yeah.
it, even knowing what we should be doing doesn't always translate into actually doing it.
You're absolutely right.
Right.
That's where the rubber meets the road and
Yeah.
where Eat That Frog offers some really valuable insights.
Okay.
Anil Nathu devotes a good chunk of this one-hour guide to summarizing the techniques the book provides
Yeah.
for staying focused and motivated and, well, actually getting things done.
I'm all ears. Let's dive into those techniques.
Well, one of the key principles is the importance of focusing on what Brian Tracy calls key result areas,
Okay.
which is the focus of Chapter 7.
Gotcha.
These are the areas that are absolutely essential to your success,
Okay.
whether you're running a business, leading a team, or just trying to achieve your personal goals.
So it's about aligning our actions with our biggest priorities.
Yes.
Those things that are going to have the most impact in the long run.
Precisely. It's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of daily tasks and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But if we constantly remind ourselves of our key result areas,
Right.
we can make sure that our frogs are the ones that will truly contribute to our overall success.
That makes sense.
And that leads us to another powerful concept from the book,
Okay.
the Law of Three, which is outlined in Chapter 8.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. What's the law of three?
It's a simple but effective strategy.
Okay.
Each day, identify the 3 most important tasks that will move you closer to your goals.
Okay.
Your top 3 frogs, if you will.
Top 3 frogs. I like it.
Then focus your energy on completing those tasks before anything else.
So it's like having a mini mission for each day.
Yeah.
A trio of tasks that will make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
I can see how that would help you stay focused and avoid getting sidetracked by less important things.
Exactly. And it ties in beautifully with the idea of single-handling tasks,
Good.
which is the focus of Chapter 21.
Right.
Instead of jumping between multiple tasks and trying to multitask,
Yeah.
which often just leads to scattered focus and decreased productivity,
Right.
you dedicate your full attention to one task at a time, complete it to the best of your ability,
totally.
and then move on to the next one.
Oh, the power of focus. It makes sense. I know when I try to do too many things at once, I end up feeling frazzled and not doing any of them particularly well.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
But there's another important aspect of focus that Tracy highlights
Yeah.
and that Anil Nathu touches on in this one-hour guide.
Okay.
It's the idea of preparing thoroughly before you begin. Chapter 9 is all about this.
Okay.
Have you ever jumped into a task without really thinking it through,
Oh, yeah.
only to realize halfway through that you were missing information or needed a specific tool?
I am so guilty of that.
Yeah.
I get all gung-ho about starting something new,
Yeah.
and then I hit a roadblock and have to scramble to find what I need.
Yeah,
It's a huge time waster.
it absolutely is. And that's why preparation is so crucial.
Right.
Taking the time to gather the necessary information,
Right.
organize your resources,
Yeah.
and anticipate potential roadblocks can save you a ton of time and frustration in the long run.
It's like the old adage, measure twice, cut once.
Yes.
A little upfront planning can make the execution so much smoother.
Couldn't agree more. And speaking of breaking things down,
Yeah.
that brings us to another key takeaway.
Okay.
The concept of taking it one oil barrel at a time, which Tracy explores in Chapter 10.
I like that.
It's all about tackling those big, overwhelming tasks
Right.
by breaking them into smaller, more manageable chunks.
That feels way less intimidating.
Right.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's much easier to envision finishing one oil barrel than a whole ocean of them, right?
Exactly. And, this strategy isn't just for big projects.
Wow.
It can be applied to everyday tasks as well.
Okay.
If something feels too daunting, break it down into smaller steps.
So if my frog for the day is to write a blog post, I could break it down into outlining, research, drafting, editing, and publishing.
Exactly.
Each step feels more manageable than just facing the blank page and the pressure of writing the entire thing in one go.
Now, we've talked about identifying our frogs and breaking them down.
Right.
But what about the actual motivation to take action?
Yeah.
Especially when procrastination is whispering sweet nothings in our ears.
Ugh. I know that voice.
That's where chapters 13 and 14 come in.
Okay, I'm ready.
Put the pressure on yourself
Okay.
and motivate yourself into action.
These titles sound like they're straight out of a motivational poster.
I know, right?
But I'm curious to hear how these chapters are summarized in the 1-hour guide by Anil Nathu.
Well, Tracy suggests that one of the best ways to combat procrastination is to create a sense of urgency,
Okay.
even if there isn't an external deadline looming.
Right.
Chapter 13 emphasizes the power of setting self-imposed deadlines. It's about holding yourself accountable and creating that internal pressure to get things done.
So it's like being your own boss,
Yeah.
setting expectations and deadlines for yourself.
But what about those days when even that internal pressure isn't enough?
Oh yeah, I have those days.
What happens when motivation just seems to have flown the coop?
I need some advice for those days.
That's where Chapter 14 steps in with a whole toolkit of motivational strategies.
Okay, give me that toolkit.
One of the key takeaways here is the power of positive self-talk and visualization.
So instead of telling ourselves, ugh, I have to do this, it's about reframing it as, I'm going to ROCK this task and feel amazing afterward.
Exactly. It's about shifting your mindset
Okay.
and focusing on the positive outcomes. Yeah,
Rather than dwelling on the dread of the task itself.
that makes a lot of sense.
But let's be honest, there's one big distraction that can sabotage even the best intentions.
You're talking about technology, right?
Bingo! Chapters 15 and 16,
Oh, yeah.
technology is a terrible master versus technology is a wonderful servant.
I like that.
Offer contrasting views on this modern-day dilemma.
Yeah.
It's like Tracy's acknowledging this constant tug-of-war we all have with our device.
Constantly.
Right?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
a double-edged sword.
Oh, it is.
On the one hand, technology can be an incredible tool for productivity,
Absolutely.
helping us connect, collaborate, and get things done more efficiently.
Right.
But on the other hand, it can be a huge time suck,
Yes.
distracting us with notifications, social media, and endless streams of information.
It's a battle.
It's a constant battle for our attention.
It is.
And in the 1 Hour Guide, Anil Nathu highlights Tracy's advice on how to make technology work for us
Okay.
instead of the other way around. Give me those tips.
One key takeaway is the importance of being mindful of our technology use.
So being aware of how much time we're spending on our devices,
Yes.
setting boundaries, and making sure we're using technology intentionally rather than just mindlessly scrolling or clicking.
Precisely. And that leads us beautifully into Chapter 17, Focus Your Attention.
Oh, focus.
This chapter reminds us that our ability to focus is a finite resource,
It is, yeah.
and we need to protect and nurture it.
It's so true.
Think about it, listener.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to work on something important
Oh, yeah.
while your phone is buzzing with notifications?
Yeah.
Emails are popping up on your screen, and your mind is racing with a million other thoughts.
It's like trying to meditate in the middle of Times Square. It's practically impossible to focus with all those distractions vying for our attention.
It is, and that's why creating a focused environment is so crucial.
So crucial.
Turning off notifications, putting your phone on silent, maybe even using noise-canceling headphones.
I need the...
These are all small but powerful ways to minimize distractions and create space for deep work.
It's about creating those pockets of time where we can truly get into the flow state
Yes.
and make meaningful progress.
Exactly. And that brings us to the home stretch.
Okay.
Let's do a quick recap of some of the remaining chapters that Anil Nathu highlights in his 1 Hour Guide.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. I'm ready for the rapid fire round. Hit me with the key takeaways.
You got it. Chapter 18.
Hit me.
Slice and dice the task.
Okay.
We've already touched on this, but it's worth reiterating.
All right.
Break down those big, intimidating tasks
All right.
into smaller, more manageable pieces.
It's about making those frogs less intimidating.
Precisely. And then we have Chapter 19.
Okay.
Create large chunks of time.
Ooh, large chunks of time.
Which reminds us that deep work requires dedicated time blocks.
It does.
If we're constantly switching between tasks,
Right.
we never really get into that flow state where we're truly productive.
Right. It's all about focus. It's like trying to build a house of cards in a windstorm. You need a calm, focused environment to create something substantial.
Exactly. And then there's Chapter 20.
Okay.
Develop a sense of urgency.
Develop a sense of urgency.
This is about creating that internal drive to get things done.
Okay.
It's not about rushing or
Yeah.
stressing,
Right.
but about being proactive and intentional.
So it's about bringing that fire, that passion to our work.
Yes.
And not letting things languish on our to-do list for weeks on end.
You nailed it. And that brings us full circle.
Full circle.
Back to the concept of single-handling tasks.
Right.
Focus on one task at a time, complete it fully, and then move on to the next.
Yeah.
It's the most effective way to work.
I can see that.
And it's the perfect way to wrap up our exploration of Eat That Frog, as summarized in the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu.
I feel like we've just devoured a whole feast of productivity wisdom.
I know, right?
What are your final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up this deep dive?
I think the most important takeaway from Eat That Frog and from this excellent 1 Hour Guide is that procrastination is a choice. It's
Ooh.
something we can actively combat by implementing the strategies we've discussed today.
Okay.
It's about identifying our frogs,
Right.
planning, prioritizing, and taking focused action.
It's empowering to think that we have the power to change our habits and become more productive.
Absolutely.
It's not about some magical formula. It's about making conscious choices and taking action.
Exactly. And, even small changes can make a big difference.
Right.
You don't have to implement all of these strategies at once.
Yeah. Small steps.
Start by picking one or two that resonate with you and see how they work.
Okay.
Maybe you try setting those self-imposed deadlines, or you commit to creating a more focused work environment.
Makes sense.
Just start somewhere.
It's like building any new habit, right?
Exactly.
Start small, be consistent, and celebrate those wins along the way.
Exactly. And if you find yourself needing a refresher on these principles,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu is a fantastic resource.
It's a good summary.
Yeah, it's a quick read, but it's packed with those key takeaways
Right.
that can really help you shift your mindset and boost your productivity.
It's like having a productivity coach in your pocket. Well, there you have it, folks.
There you go.
A deep dive into Eat That Frog
Mm.
by Brian Tracy,
A classic.
as summarized by Anil Nathu in his 1 Hour Guide.
Mm-hmm.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from identifying your most important tasks to managing your time and energy effectively to
Absolutely.
staying motivated and focused in a world full of distractions.
It's tough out there.
It is. It is.
Lots of distractions.
And I hope you've gained some valuable insights and practical strategies that you can start applying in your own life.
I hope so.
Remember, the power to conquer procrastination and boost your productivity is within your grasp.
You got this.
It's time to go eat some frogs. Thank you for joining us today. Visit the 1 Hour Guide website for more business insights by Anil Nathu.